It doesn't matter how detailed or great your classroom procedures are. If students are bored when you're teaching them, they're not going to remember your procedures. So instead of just standing there reading off a long list, let me show you 5 fun ways on how to actually teach your classroom procedures so that they stick. Hey there, teacher friends. I'm Tanya, the Butterfly Teacher, and let's jump right into tip number 1. One of my favorite ways to teach classroom procedures is something I like to call fix the fuzzy friends letter.
Wait, what?
I know. Okay, let me explain. Instead of just talking at your students to tell them what your procedures are, I turn the process into a story. I introduce these silly little characters I call fuzzy friends, and they write letters to my students explaining how school works. The catch is they're filled with all kinds of grammatical errors and they have messed up directions in each letter. So now my students have a job to do. They have to work together in small groups, read the letter, find and edit the mistakes, then rewrite the procedure the correct way. Let's say one of the fuzzy friends is trying to explain what students should do when they come into the classroom, because that's a procedure. Let's look at a simple reenactment, if you will. Instead of me standing there saying, come in quietly, put your backpack away, turn in your homework, sit down. Now, the students are actually reading the procedures for my class. They're fixing the grammar mistakes, talking about the procedures with their classmates, and all of this builds retention. See the difference? What I really love about this is that it does 2 things at the same time. Number 1, students are actually talking to each other and thinking through the classroom procedures. And 2, I get to start real academic work right away. I'm not spending the first few weeks of school just talking at students about procedures while they sit there and do nothing. Once each group finishes fixing their fuzzy friend letter, they share the correct procedure with the class. And then we immediately practice it together. That way, kids are not only reading about the expectation from their peers, which is important, but they're actually showing me that they understand it by putting it into practice. Then I can guide them through any mistakes I notice while they're showing the procedure. Now, with this tip, your students are not only learning procedures in an engaging way, they are reviewing grammar and writing
All at the same time, yes!
Now, if you like getting students up and actually doing something, you are really going to love my idea on the 3rd tip, so be sure to stick with me till then. But first, let me show you another fun way to teach classroom procedures that make it so memorable. Your back-to-school read-alouds can do so much more than just fill your literacy block during the beginning of the year. Use the characters to teach procedures. Find a character who makes a bad choice, breaks a rule, or does something that absolutely would not fly in your classroom. And then engage your students by asking, okay, what should this character have done instead? You can even have students act it out with you. Let each student demonstrate how the procedure should look in your classroom. That alone is going to be more memorable than you just standing there saying what the procedure is or talking on and on to lecture your students. Another idea is using the read aloud and having your students rewrite part of the story as though that character was a student in your class. The catch? The character has to follow your classroom procedures. So now you're working on comprehension, writing, while you are reinforcing what students are supposed to do as a part of your routines and procedures. What should this character do if they need help with something? What should happen when they're finished early? How should they transition to the next small group instruction? You can make the discussion as simple or as detailed as your students need it to be. Later on, my tip number 5 is a freebie that will make it so much easier for your kiddos to remember procedures. So stick with me to the end of the video so that you can see it and get it for your class. Now we are on to tip number 3. This is a game I like to call Procedures Partners. It's really simple, so take your classroom procedures, split them into 2 parts. Put each half on a separate card, then mix the cards up and give one to each student. Their job is to move around the classroom, find the person holding the other half of their procedure. For example, one card might say, when my pencil breaks, I... And then somewhere in the room is another student holding the other half of the card that says, get a newly sharpened pencil from the pencil basket. Those 2 students have to find each other and then stand together until all are done. Now, imagine doing that with procedures for turning in your work, going to the bathroom, getting supplies, going to centers, asking for help. All of the procedures that you have, even what to do when they're finished with something early, can be used for this game. Now here's what I really, really love about this activity. Your students are practicing all of their procedures, learning them, reviewing them, but they're also practicing how to move around your classroom appropriately, and they're getting some reading practice in while they're doing this. So you get to watch them, and while you do, you get to notice, how are they handling this movement? Are they talking too loudly? Are they running? Are they staying on task? Which kids keep gravitating towards one another even though they're not procedures partners? This will help you to see who might be besties and who you might want to keep separated because you're not just teaching the procedure that is written on the cards. You're teaching them how your classroom operates during a movement-based activity, and that matters. Because your kiddos will be moving around your room a lot throughout the year for different transitions. So you want to make sure that they have the practice, knowing and understanding the right way to move around your class, and you want them to learn that procedure ASAP. Now, the next idea can absolutely use some of these same procedures cards, so don't throw them away. Honey, I'm all about working smarter, not harder. Speaking of, you don't want to miss the freebie that I have for you on tip number 5 because it's going to help you work smarter too. Let's move on to the next idea. For tip number 4, pull out the board games. Seriously, trouble. Sorry, life. My favorite board game to use for teaching procedures, Chutes and Ladders. Whatever board game you've got that your students already know how to play. In my 13 years of teaching, I also learned game boards with less pieces are great for this activity because you're gonna let them play the game pretty much like they normally would, except with one little change. Those procedures cards that have all of your classroom routines, before a student takes their turn or however you want to set it up, they're gonna use these cards for the board game. And that's why I love using familiar games that students already know how to play, because I don't want to spend forever teaching them how to play the game. I want them to practice learning our procedures and reviewing what the routines are. So we're not going into a brand new board game, and those partner procedure cards can become the game board pieces. So your students are just swapping out the regular game board pieces for these. Now your students are having to retrieve the procedure by memory, and you want these routines to be rote memory for your kids. That keeps you from having to constantly remind them throughout the school year, and this gives you exactly what you want: trained behavior on how your classroom works. You already know your kids. They're gonna love playing the board games, so we just have to remember, like, how can we get our kids to practice reviewing procedures in a fun way? Please hit that like button for me. I would really appreciate it. One of the simplest things I did was put my entrance and exit procedures directly on my student's desk. I typed them up on a little card, laminated them, and then attached those laminated checklists with small Velcro dots so that students could actually refer back to them. This was a game changer for mornings and at the end of the day routine in my classroom. If someone was off task, I could easily redirect them back to that checklist on their desk. When students entered my class in the morning, they knew what they were supposed to do step by step without any reminders from me. And then when it was time to leave, they could just look down at the exit procedures. At the beginning of the school year, we expect kids to remember a lot of new information. New teacher, new classroom, new schedule, new expectations and routines. So I don't mind giving them a visual reminder. Plus, these are also really, really helpful when there's a sub. And this is the freebie I've been promising you. I have these editable classroom procedure checklists that you can use and put on your student's desk. The link is below this video, or you can scan the QR code on the screen to get it for your class. Edit these procedures in a way that makes sense for you in your classroom based on your procedures for entering and at the end of the day. And this is one of those things that works whether you teach, I don't know, 2nd grade, 3rd, all the way up till 6th grade or whatever grade, because you can word them and make them fit for your classroom. Now, let me say this, because I got to keep it real. None of the activities that I talked about in this video are going to work if you skip one really important piece. No matter which of these ideas that you use, students still need to see the procedure, hear the procedure, practice it, and repeat. You cannot expect your kids to master something that you only mention once, and if they get a chance to practice it one time. No. For my class, I would spend the first 6 to 8 weeks of school coming back to review and practice procedures. I know you're thinking 6 to 8 weeks? Yeah, that much. Because most classroom behavior issues are not because kids don't have enough rules to follow. It's because they don't know the procedure or routine. And no, a classroom rule is not the same as a procedure. That's why teaching your routines in a fun way is a must. It makes the practice more engaging, and that is the difference. Your procedure shouldn't just be something that they hear about one time during the first day of school and then that's it. Speaking of the first days of school, if you're wondering what else you can do with your students during that initial beginning of the school year, or you're just looking for ideas to build community, I've got another video for you right here that helps build a strong foundation for your school year. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video, and I'll see you over there. Until then, continue to transform learning beautifully.